Welcome to Not Starving Artist, the podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Benson, money coach and equity actor. I am your financial cheerleader, here to help you build your financial confidence and have power over your money. The best part, no budgeting or bi-weekly paychecks required. I went from being a broke BFA grad having weekly panic attacks about money to a financially confident, wealth-building actor and business owner. Money gets to feel fun, simple, and sexy, and I am going to show you how. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I want to talk about how to eat less takeout if you desire to eat less takeout. But this is going to be a conversation that's more than just takeout. The reason I'm talking about takeout specifically or eating out is because that's what I hear from so many people, like clients when they come to me, if they feel like they have an overspending issue, a lot of times they're pinning it on, oh, I just eat out or I get takeout or like I spend too much on food, right? I hear that from a lot of you in my DMs as well. And this week I had a Instagram reel that was like popping off talking about this topic. So we're going to do a podcast episode on it. So when we're talking about like habit changes, behavior changes, routine changes, and that's what this is, right? If you want to eat out less, spend less money on food, and also, wait, let me pull way back here. The reason that you'd want to spend less money on food is because spending that amount of money on food and the type of food throughout the month doesn't feel aligned for you, okay? There's no like morally good amount to spend on takeout in a month. Like there's no benchmark or threshold that's like the good amount. That doesn't exist. It's about you and your income, your spending, the wiggle room you have. So like not only the amount that feels good numerically to be spending on food, but then also just like in your heart, in your soul, spiritually, in this world, in this day and age, like what feels good for you to be putting your dollars towards and with what frequency. So I want to start the conversation with, it's okay if you don't feel like you need to spend less on takeout. And if you are feeling that way, that's okay too. It doesn't mean that you've gone into like frugal deprivation mode. It means you're realigning your priorities. Also, let me pull even way farther back. When we're talking about like spending money right now, shit has gotten weird, to understate it, like crazy out here in these streets. Shit's gotten weird. Economically, politically, in the landscape, just overall, right? So with a lot of the stuff that's been happening, right, like tariffs, inflation, capitalism, things have gotten much more expensive at a much more rapid pace than we have been used to, right? Like over the past 5 years, things have skyrocketed in price point. Like if we're talking just percentages. So what that means is that the value that you used to feel you got from something, that might not align with the price that you pay for it anymore, okay? Because of how quickly prices have increased, right? And what your current financial situation is. So like there are things that I used to love spending money on, love, that I don't spend money on anymore. Purely because, not because they bring me any less joy, but because now the price is like doubled and I don't like paying that specific price for that specific thing because now the value is no longer a match. So I just want to let you know that if you are experiencing that with eating out, spending money on food, on takeout, on those sorts of things, like I had a client ask me this question where she was like, I feel like I'm going into this weird like deprivation mode of like I have to eat out way less because I don't like how much I'm spending, but it's just because it got more expensive. And I'm like, right, like nothing went wrong there, that you're feeling a value realignment where you're like the price got more and I don't like the amount of joy that I'm getting from it, again, just like doesn't match what I'm spending. That doesn't mean that you've gone into like a frugal starvation scarcity mindset. That means you've just assessed your values and your priorities. So nothing has gone wrong if that is the case, because that is what has happened with prices and the world. Eating out and takeout just is like one of the biggest like spotlights on that, because almost all of us do eat some sort of takeout at some point. Food is a crux of our lives, right? So we're all seeing that at the forefront. Okay, so now let me zoom all the way back in. Now that I've done, I don't even call them disclaimers, but we need like context, and we need to like set the stage for the conversation that we're about to have, which is, all right, you've decided you want to eat less takeout. How are you going to do that? Because I bet you that if you're listening to this episode and you're resonating with some of this, and you're like, yeah, I do want to spend less money on takeout, that you've tried to spend less money on takeout before and it hasn't stuck, right? Or it hasn't been like a real shift, or like it felt really shitty and horrible to do. Now, a lot of times what I see is when there is a desire to spend less money on takeout, it's wrapped into a new identity that you want to put on for yourself. So a lot of times it's not just about, I don't like how much I'm spending. It's about, I don't like how much I'm spending. I don't like how busy my life is. I don't like the lifestyle that I'm leading that requires me to eat so much takeout. I don't like what the takeout is doing to my body. I'm not treating my body how I want her to be treated. And me eating takeout has somehow become has become synonymous with this version of myself that I don't want to be, and me eating less takeout and eating at home more now equals this other ideal version of me who has her life together. Now, be honest, that's what happened, right? Whenever I hear someone say, I want to eat out less, it's the same when people say, like, I want to start working out. Those two phrases seem like, oh, those are just like goals that are very specific to one area. But those two specifically, I have seen tied to identity so much more than any other kind of goal, right? Where it's like, okay, if I can change this habit, all of these other things about my life are going to change. And the person that I'm envisioning in my future, who like literally has their life together, is living my dream life, she doesn't eat takeout. And so what happens when we attach so much like identity or like weight to this one thing without even realizing sometimes that that's what we're doing, what happens is when you try and eat less takeout just through like willpower of like, I've decided that this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to look at my money spreadsheet and like hope that those numbers and my willpower carry me through the motivation of saying no to takeout on a Wednesday afternoon, you know, when I'm about to head home from work and I'm tired and I don't want to eat what's in my fridge. I ranted and now I lost my train of thought. What happens when that all gets tied up and you're starting on the journey to like change this habit or adjust something in your lifestyle? When you inevitably fail, because there's no way that willpower can carry you through like an actual lifestyle change in the way you're trying to do it. When that inevitably fails, or like you do eat takeout one day or whatever, it means way more than just like, oh, I ate takeout today. Oh, I spent, $20 more than I thought I was going to spend this month, right? Like that's pretty small. But why it feels so big is because it's usually carrying the weight of like, why can't I do this, right? If I can't do this, then how on earth am I going to achieve that version of me that I've attached this to? How on earth am I ever going to be able to like achieve that thing if I'm not able to hack this, right? So then it becomes really heavy, and then we black out. We black out and we disassociate and we avoid and we stick our head in the sand, because that is so much to feel about one decision of eating takeout or not on one specific day, okay? So this is to help validate the feeling of like, of course it's felt hard, because you might not have even realized that that's what you've been doing when you've decided you want to eat less takeout, okay? So now I want to talk about like, okay, well then how do you actually change it, right? Like you don't like how much you're spending on takeout and eating out, right? And you want to change it. How do you actually go about doing that? So the problem with the first scenario, what a lot of us normally do, is we decide that we have to become a totally different person in order to make the behavior change. So you have to turn into someone that you literally are not in order to be able to do that thing, okay? So when you're envisioning the version of you who doesn't eat takeout, she's usually the version of you that has a totally different career, that dresses different, that's 10 pounds lighter, that has perfect skin, that has a, booming social life, that's booked the acting gig they wanted to book, that has the perfect morning routine, that keeps a bullet journal, right? That's like always on top of her emails and in inbox zero every single day. Like, that version of you doesn't exist. But for some reason, we think that the version of us that doesn't desire to eat out or eat takeout very much, she's that girl. So we're trying to like be that girl when I'm sorry, baby, you're not gonna have a bullet journal, okay? You're not gonna have the perfect skin. And guess what? That's okay. And you can still make a behavior change of eating less takeout without having to become, one of my clients likened it to Anne Hathaway in Devil Wears Prada, of like, that's the version of herself that she's like envisioning when she thinks of like that girl. Like, we're not going to be that girl. Also, did we all watch I can't get into the Devil Wears Prada right now. What this boils down to is that you're asking too much of yourself when you're trying to make a behavior change, okay? And why you ask too much of yourself, why when you decide you want to eat less takeout, that usually then results in, okay, and now I'm going to meal prep and meal plan and eat clean at home every single meal and pack my lunch every single day, right? Like, that is a huge fucking leap, y'all. Okay? So you are asking so much of yourself, because again, like when you say I want to eat out less and eat less takeout, okay, well, the version of me that is that she's like the super healthy on top of her shit version of me, that doesn't exist. That really enjoys meal prepping and always has the time on Sunday to batch prep 7 fucking meals for the rest of the week. She doesn't exist. It's not going to happen. It's not, okay? And the people that you see on Instagram and Pinterest doing that, it's because that is their full-time job. She doesn't exist, okay? So you need to give yourself an actual attainable way to make this behavior change. So to sum up the entirety of what I've been saying and what I'm about to say is put some damn chicken tenders in your freezer, okay? You're not going to buy all these fresh groceries from the farmer's market to make all of these like cool Buddha bowls that you saw that you've like saved in your recipe folder, and you're going to have these like glass containers that you can take. No, you're going to have frozen chicken tenders in your freezer, and you're going to buy a jar of your favorite sauce that you love to eat with those chicken tenders, and you're gonna have some frozen broccoli because broccoli is your favorite vegetable, and that's what you have for dinner sometimes, right? And I'm saying this from the point of view of a person who loves chicken tenders. It's me. I fucking love chicken tenders. I'm always gonna have chicken tenders in my freezer, because on the days when I'm just like, I don't want to cook and I just want to grab fast food, do you know what is just as enticing to me? Coming home and heating up my frozen chicken tenders with my at-home DIY honey mustard sauce that I'm obsessed with. That is just as exciting as me picking up a bag of takeout, right? It scratches the same itch. Do you know what would have me getting takeout? Me being like, I have to heat up that like chickpea rice bowl that I cooked at the beginning of the week that has like veggies that are really good for me and it's loaded with fiber and chia seeds. No! Frozen chicken tenders. So I want you to think about like, what are those things that you can have? And we're going to get to how this applies to more than just takeout here in a second. I need you to think about, why don't you want to eat the food that you have at home? Most likely it's because you're not excited about the food you have at home, okay? So the first step is to get excited about the food that you have at home. We always have a frozen pizza in our freezer, because on a night where we're like, oh, we just don't want to cook whatever, we have a frozen pizza right there. Get a frozen pizza in your fridge. Get the frozen chicken tenders. I have a client who loves curry, and she was always picking it up from the place that's like down the street from her. And what she was doing is she was like, okay, I want to make curry at home. So she would get all of these fresh ingredients, and like she would get vegetables, and she like has her rice cooker, and so she had this plan that she would like make this for the week, but then she like wouldn't make the whole recipe, and then she would end up with the groceries for it that go bad, and then also still eating takeout, right? So instead it's like, right, what can you have in your pantry, right? Like there are packets of like pre-made sauce, pre-made curry. You can have microwavable rice. Like there are so many things that you can do that are so much easier to create that meal that's going to like scratch the itch. Because a lot of times when we're craving takeout, it's like we're craving a specific food, or we're so busy and just exhausted we don't want to put mental energy or physical energy into cooking it, or we're trying to like scratch a different kind of itch where we're like, we just want to feel something. I want to feel the novelty of eating out. I want to like shove down a feeling, and this is going to like give me some sort of experience of eating out, right? Like that's a bit of a different conversation. But if we're scratching if we're solving for the problem of like low physical effort and shit you like to eat, those are so easily solved for. What's getting in your way of actually doing that is because you've decided that what you like and the amount of energy that you have on a day-to-day basis, there's something wrong with you. That you should be able to have more energy. That you should be able to eat healthier. Like, oh yeah, I could do that, but it would be so much better if I made it fresh. Yeah, I could put, frozen chicken tenders in my fridge, but it would be so much better if I made like a really nutritious bowl for myself. Like, the thought that's getting in the way is like, I have to do it better or perfect, instead of just doing the one step better thing for you, which is I'm going to not spend $20 on probably some like food that isn't going to keep well on the way here or on my way home from picking it up. And it's not actually going to be as delicious and worth the $20. Like, why don't I make something that I think is actually going to taste pretty good, if not equal to what I was going to get? And now I'm not spending $20 6 times a week, right? That old cliche of like perfect is the enemy of good. That's what it is. Perfect is the enemy of good. It's because you're striving to have these perfect meals and do eating the perfect way or whatever that means to you. And you forget that there's like so many steps between where you are right now and that version of you. And spoiler alert, that version of you most likely does not exist. So now we're going to like move away from the takeout conversation, but we're going to take these principles and talk about so many other areas of your life, like your financial life. I always say that when you're on a financial wellness journey, it is going to be the biggest growth and practice of self-love that you can give yourself. Because when you're on a financial wellness journey, you have to assess exactly who you are, exactly how you function, exactly your desires and your priorities and your wants and your personality and how your brain works. And you have to create a lifestyle and systems around that version of you. And you want to know why this is the biggest practice of self-love? Is because you can't hide from your priorities and your wants and how you function when it comes to money, okay? Your true desires and quirks and how your brain works, they are always going to come out when you're working on your money, right? This is why, like, if you've tried to budget and you haven't been able to keep up with your spreadsheet, it's like, hey, ADHD, I see you, girl. That's why you haven't been able to keep up with that spreadsheet, right? Or a big one for me is like, I have a big fuck you, don't tell me what to do personality. And so like there was a time when I was a budgeting girly, and I had a budgeting app that would like ping me when I overspent in certain categories. And I was like, fuck you, don't tell me what to do. I'll spend on what I want. And I'm like, oh, hey, you personality, there you are, girl. And it's like, you can't hide from your innate nature. You can't hide from that when you're working on your money. It's going to smack you in the face. So like when something like that happens, it's like, okay, I could be mad that I have this weird, like, fuck you, don't tell me what to do, I'm going to do what I want energy. Or I could decide that that's beautiful and perfect and an asset to who I am. And it's part of why I am who I am today, and I love who I am today, and I can't be mad at that part of me because she's gotten me so far. So I'm just going to create a money system that doesn't trigger me in the fuck you, I do what I want kind of energy. I had to create a system that gave me full autonomy, that made me feel like I was in charge every step of the way. Right? And I had to, then that's where the mindset work came in, right? Of like, okay, I need to figure out, why do I even want to work on my money in the first place? Why do I even care about having these goals? Why do I care about how I'm spending? Like, I had to dig deep to be able to like create that intrinsic motivation, right? But like I had to do that because I was smacked in the face with my nature, right? How I function. So when you're thinking about your money, right? And the things you want to shift and the things you want to change. If you keep running up against a wall of something, so maybe it's not takeout for you. Maybe it's a different kind of spending that you keep like hitting a wall against. Or maybe it's you are having a really hard time keeping money in savings. Or maybe it's that you're having a really hard time putting money into investments and it gets spent on other things. Like there could be a lot of different walls that you come up against. And when you come up against something like that, what that requires of you is it requires you to ask yourself, why do I keep hitting a wall? Why am I resisting this? And why does this keep happening? What is the reason? What are the thoughts that are going through my head? Or why do I feel the need to like black out and go into avoidance? Right? And then from that, what you're going to discover is either a narrative in your brain that needs to get worked through, or you're going to find out a desire or a want for your life that you haven't like decided is okay and good, right? Whether that's like a certain thing that you love to spend on or a certain like lifestyle you desire, okay? Or the third thing is that you're going to bump up against a way that your brain works or a piece of your personality that's causing the roadblock. So like, when that happens, that's a really good thing because then you're going to discover a piece of yourself that you need to love harder, right? If you got F's in math all the way through school, or you like skated by on C's and D's, but you like should have gotten F's, but like your teachers like bumped you with some extra credit just so you could graduate. Like if you were shit at math, right? And you're also type B, so you're just like, you're kind of living in the present moment all the time. And you know that you want to get your money shit together because you know that there's been some stressful financial situations that have made you feel anxiety that you would not like to feel in the future. But you're like, well, it's just kind of can't do it because I'm not good at math and I'm not very organized, right? What that is doing is it's in an antithesis to self-love because you're like, how I am and how I function is a problem for my financial wellness. Money and how I exist are at war with each other. But what if they're not? Okay? But what if they're not? That's what a financial wellness journey requires you to ask of yourself. What if you could be so shit at math? What if there is not a single math equation that you could do in your head and you always need to get out your calculator and half the time you don't even know what to plug into your calculator because you're that shit at math? What if that was purely so okay, so beautiful and so wonderful as to how you function? Because that means there's another fat ass part of your brain that got all the math juices that you are able to utilize in a totally different way, right? Maybe that's where your artistry went. Maybe that's where all that part of your brain that was supposed to go to math, she went to creativity and you got big fat creative ideas over there on the, left brain or right brain? Which one is the creative? Whatever side of the brain it is, right? What if that wasn't a problem for you to get your money shit together? For you to, and so what would that require, right? And this is, I'm talking a little bit me here, right? But more for me with the math, it was like I was getting so fixated on the math and the spreadsheet and the numbers that I had to pull myself away from it. And I was like, okay, how can I make this so simple that my anxiety doesn't even have time to start spiraling about the numbers and the math, okay? So all this means is that you need a way to manage money that doesn't require a lot of math from you, right? And to the money flow method, that's exactly what it does. But I'll give you another example. Like one of my clients, we talk about having monthly financial CEO parties. This is one of the steps inside of the 4-step anti-budget money strategy that I teach all of my clients. It's in the Cashed Up Creatives online video portal. And also it's the baseline of the framework I use with all of my private clients. So having a monthly money date, a financial CEO party, is part of the process. Now for her, She likes to have weekly meetings with herself. So she has Money Mondays. Every single Monday, it's like her CEO day. So every Monday, that's how she starts her week, by like looking at her bank accounts. And then once a month is when she moves all of her money. But for her, it happening weekly is better for her. So like I've had clients who, with their like specific brand of ADHD or like whatever specific like neurospicy things happening in their brains, like one of them, for her, if she didn't do something weekly, it literally wouldn't happen. Like she couldn't have like a monthly routine, because by the time 3 weeks had gone by, she'd forget about it. It's not going to happen. It's not part of the routine. So for her, it was so important for like the things that she was setting up in place to happen every single week in order for it to happen. So we just had to adjust the CEO party system for this specific client, right, to a weekly process. And like the client I talked about before, she just likes having her money dates on Mondays, right? And she does it every week. So you are able to like bend and mold and create. Hello, creatives. You are able to create your money management style and how you have a relationship with your money around you. But you're just forgetting to ask the question, how do I make my money work with how I function, with what I want, with what I desire, right? With what my lifestyle looks like. This is what I had to do when I knew I was going to be an actor my entire life. Instead of being like, I'm going to be a starving artist because I have fluctuating income and I never know when my next gig is going to be. Instead, I asked myself I asked myself a question. Instead of just deciding that that was the case, I asked myself the question, how am I going to have financial stability with inconsistent income and the life of an artist? And that led to a bunch of different answers. And it's had a lot of different manifestations over the years before I even had this business, before I was even here at Not Starving Artists. But asking that question allowed me to mold an income system and a money management system around my artistic lifestyle, instead of just deciding that my artistic lifestyle was at war with my money. Deciding that my anxiety was at war with my money. Deciding that my big fuck you Aries personality was at war with my money. No, I asked the question, okay, money, how are we going to make this work with how I am? Okay? So your homework this week, like what I want you to be asking yourself is, what are the parts of myself that I feel like are at war with my financial wellness? What am I making a problem between me and my money, right? And like, you're gonna have to sit with this for a minute. And this is what I do with a lot of my private clients. We're like following these trails. So for example, if you're like, I just feel like I can never, like, I just don't care about my future in like the broad sense of, I feel no motivation to put money towards retirement, right? Like I'm always just gonna wanna like take the trip or spend the money now. And so then we sit with that question, and at first glance, it's like, I don't have any motivation to save and invest. Like that's at war with my financial wellness, because I know it's the right thing and I know it's the responsible thing and whatever. And it's like, okay, like there's nothing wrong with you. So like tell me why that feels like the case. And so just to follow this example down the path of like, okay, so the first thing we'll do is decide, like, when you think about retirement, what do you think about? And it's like, oh, like I'm just like picturing my grandparents who are maybe not living the kind of retired life that you'd want to live. So of course there's no excitement there. So like it makes sense why you're not excited. Or maybe it's like the existential dread, doom and gloom of like what's happening in the world and our country and like global warming and climate change. And maybe like you actually don't picture a future, right? Or maybe there's something deeper of like, I feel like I don't have enough to put towards that, and so I feel like I'm behind, and so like I'm not even gonna start putting money towards it, because literally what is the point? Like there's a lot of narratives and mental blocks that could be there. And so maybe what we need to do is we'll work together on deciding the kind of retired life or work optional life you would want to live in your 50s and beyond, and something that actually excites you to drum up that motivation. Maybe it's about actually running the real numbers of like, here's how even just $20 a month is actually going to compound and create wealth for you over the length of time of like 30 to 40 years, right? And that we just need to run the numbers because you just need to see the math of it, right? Or maybe it's like you actually don't see a future and you have decided, like, we'll work through it and be like, okay, the fact of the matter is, if you don't invest now, here's what's going to happen. And if you do invest now, here's what's going to happen. And the trade-off between like the risk you want to take with what that future life could look like versus right now with what your life is, you're like, you know what? I'm going to take a few years and continue not investing so I can just not feel guilty about what my money looks like right now and I can enjoy my life. And I'm going to come back to this conversation in 3 years knowing full well that I have lost out on 3 years of interest growth and money generation accumulation, knowing that I might accrue a little bit of financial anxiety from not having money set aside for my future self, but that actually is not as strong of a desire for me as this thing that's right now. And like, I need you to hear that that's okay too. But it's about you putting everything on the table. So self-love is about asking yourself the right questions, right? The questions being like, the fact is this is how I am and this is who I am. Okay? And so then what do I want to do? Like, what are my desires and goals for the future and how am I going to make those work together? And I'm not saying that this means that like your identity is stagnant, right? And that you can't ever change who you are, sure. But at this point, baby, the core of you, you're set, right? If you're in your mid 20s, like, yes, we're always evolving, right? And there's always new versions of us that like we are growing into, but like the core of who you are and how your brain works, right? Like that's set. She's there. She's probably been there since you were a kid. You're just now coming to terms with the fact that like, that's you, baby. So those parts of you, that's the facts. The other facts are what you want, which is I want less money anxiety. I want money in my savings. I want to be able to afford this specific kind of lifestyle. I want to be able to not have to work after 50 years old. I want to insert X, Y, and Z money goals. And those two get to be facts that are not mutually exclusive. Those get to be facts that work together. So self-love is asking the question, how can I get these two things to be true at the same time? What do I need to implement and put in place and do and think and change in my brain to get these two things to be true at the same time? So that might mean you always have that box of that gourmet mac and cheese that you love sitting in your pantry. You never don't have a box of that mac and cheese or your favorite chocolate bar or good old chicken tenders, right? You always have those on hand. This could mean that you are always going to set aside a full afternoon, block it off, out of office, no meetings, no plans, once a month, because you know that the only way you're going to actually sit down to do your financial CEO party is if you take yourself on a fun little excursion to that restaurant you love, to that coffee shop you love, to sit in the park, right? Or to just fucking like vibe and play hooky and do whatever you want in your apartment while you like beat bop in between your little financial CEO activities while you blare music and you're like in your pajamas. Like, maybe that's what you need. Maybe it's deleting the budgeting app that's always pinging you and making you roll your eyes and like plummeting your financial self-confidence. Who you are is not a problem. How you function is not a problem. The lifestyle you have and how you make income, my artists, my creatives, my self-employed babies, is not a problem. How your brain functions is not a problem. Hello, standardized texting. Fuck you. Hello, our entire schooling system. Fuck you. Right? It's not a problem. The only problem is trying to shove yourself into a money hole that you don't fit into. I regret using the word hole. A money box that you don't fit into. There are so many other money boxes. This entire episode is just a perfect illustration of how the way I teach money even came to be. The money flow method, the 4-step anti-budget money strategy, financial CEO parties. This is what it all came out of, is me asking myself the question, right? Like, what do I need with my personality and my wants and my lifestyle as an artist to be able to have financial stability and financial wellness? But then I went a step further and I was like, and then what does everyone else need to be able to figure out what works for them and have enough flexibility to be able to like mold the system that they need for their personality. And then what are the things they even need to work through or ask themselves or journal on or get coached on in order to even figure out what they need or what they feel is at war with their money, to then be able to craft the perfect system and the perfect routines, right? Perfect doesn't exist, right? But things that work for them. So this is where the entirety of what I teach here at Not Starving Artists came from. So I want you to know that like if you have been feeling down about your money or feeling hopeless or feeling like there isn't something that's going to work for you, inside of Cashed Up Creatives, I teach you the 4-step anti-budget money strategy. But what you'll find inside of there is ways to personalize it. And then through the rest of 2025, you get free office hours with me if you join the course once a month. So then you can come on those office hours and you can get coached on like, oh, this thing isn't working for me, or here's where I keep running into a roadblock. And then we're going to be able to personalize it for you. We're going to be able to like work through that roadblock together to be like, okay, so who you are and how you function isn't a problem. Here's the system thing that's a problem, or here's the thought that needs to switch because that's the problem, right? In order to be able to have the financial results that you want. Remember, no money problem is unsolvable. Right? We can solve any money problem. We just have to ask the right questions. So if you're curious about that, you can head to the link in the show notes, or you can head to Instagram. The link's in my bio. For Cashed Up Creatives, the online course, you can find the link there. Also, all of my private clients get access to that video portal alongside the weekly private coaching calls. So if you want more accountability, if you want a lot more mindset work and you have the foundations down, the private coaching, the one-on-one money mentorship, that's for you. So you can find all of that information again in the show notes on my website, link in my bio. All right, that's all for this week. Go show yourself some self-love by getting some chicken tendies in the freezer. Thanks so much for tuning in. Come join me on Instagram for more on how to build a simple, sexy relationship with your money. My Instagram handle is @NotStarvingArtists. And if you want to dive deeper with me, head to the show notes to learn more about one-on-one coaching. If you love this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend that you want to get rich with.